Welcome to Reading Revisited, a place for friends to enjoy some good, old-fashioned book chat while revisiting the truth, goodness, and beauty we found in our favorite books. I'm Kelsey Hartley.
I'm Hannah Swear.
And I'm Jessica Risma.
And today we are here to talk about our favorite winter reads. But before we jump into that, how are you guys doing? How was your Christmas? Actually, let's all go around. You can say how you're doing, how your Christmas was, but also if you have a favorite present you gave or received, you can choose which one you do. Jess, how's your Christmas? How are you doing?
It was fantastic. I feel like we actually did the Christmas tide really well because we came back on Christmas Eve and then we were home for all of Christmas tide. So we did epiphany
That's
parties
nice.
and all sorts of things. And it was the best way we had planned Christmas travel yet. So we did really well. And my favorite gift, I think, are these new shoes I got. I was looking for some everyday cute shoes that I could wear with jeans or a dress. And they're called Bare Basics. They're almost barefoot shoes.
Ooh.
Anya's reviews, if y'all follow like all the things for shoes, she's the one that recommends them and they're really cute. So yeah, that's my favorite Christmas present.
Nice. I feel like we should link those / I want to see them too because I'm
Yeah.
having
No,
I'm
Jess, show
having
us
I
your
swear.
feet.
Yeah. I like finally got myself some like jeans that actually fit me and are like real jeans and like not skinny
Mhm.
jeans and not leggings. And now I never know what shoes to wear. I'm having some shoe problems. So yeah, because you can't tuck them into the boots the same. I don't know. This is if you're like under the age of 25, call me and please tell me what shoes I should wear with my straight leg jeans.
Yeah. It's an adjustment. I'm still adjusting to the skinny jeans, the abandonment,
I am
and the
so
socks.
happy.
I was just talking about this today. My socks. Like I picked up some of the like mid-calf socks, to wear with my sneakers. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like I'm seeing my like middle school self like tucking my ankle socks like further into my sneakers so no one would know that I'm wearing socks. Like we didn't want anyone to know we were wearing
Nope.
socks. I don't know.
Nope.
It just felt like a secret, like an
What
adjustment
did
getting older.
Hannah said the other day we were talking about my shoe problems with my jeans, and she said if my high school self could see what I wore now,
Mm.
it would be
Seriously, I know
bad.
the jeans. I know it's man, it's hard
I
being a
know, I
millennial.
know. But anyway, shoe problems. So yeah, definitely gonna link those shoes. Hannah, what about you? How was your Christmas?
Yeah, mine was really good. It was fun. We hosted a lot of family and yeah, we had fun. I'm trying to think of a favorite gift. I also got new shoes. I got new sneakers, which was exciting because I am the kind of person, we laugh about this, that like I hate shopping and my
Agreed.
ideal situation, like I'm the kind of person that I don't want multiple of the same type of thing. I want like I want one good pair of jeans. I want one good pair of
Mm.
sneakers. I want one, like, I don't, whereas, like, I'm married to someone who he has like a sneaker collection and he's always like just shopping for like, oh, I'm gonna have, like, I don't know, he's just always shopping. And I'm like, I hate that. That would be terrible. We don't shop together anymore because, like, we have learned after 8.5 years, we don't shop together because I'm the kind of person like, oh, I need to go to this store to buy this thing. So I'm gonna go in, get it, put it in my cart. I'm not gonna try it on. God forbid, that takes too long.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna bring it home. It probably won't fit. I'll probably have to return it. It'll be sitting in my van for 2 to 3 years. Like this is the problem. Whereas he is the guy that's like, he's gonna spend hours trying on multiple things, puts 15 things. Anyway,
I
but
was
my
gonna
thing
say
with
you
my
sound
shoes.
like someone who's better at taking things back than I am, but then you said the thing about being in your car
Oh
for
no,
two
I
years.
don't
So
take things. That's the problem.
same.
It is actually less effective. He is a more effective shopper, I will say, but I just not my thing. But I had needed new shoes. I have had the same pair of sneakers since I was pregnant with my first child, like 6 years ago, and they're just very worn out. And but I never just want to buy them because I'm like, well, I have sneakers, but
Mhm.
Santa brought me sneakers, and I'm really excited. So yeah, now I can wear them with my mid-calf socks, and all the middle schoolers at youth group will be like, think I'm cool.
At least you have your hair parted down the middle, though, Hannah.
I was gonna say
I
about the middle
did.
part. I cannot get
I
on
have,
board with the middle
yeah,
part.
listen,
My hair
guys,
Okay,
doesn't
guys.
work in the middle.
Okay,
it was
you
hard.
have
It
to
was a
like
hard.
train it. But here's the thing, guys. I can't ever have a middle part unless I'm just like I'm
Um,
I don't dye my hair. And I am, in my mid 30s now, or in my early to mid 30s, depending who you ask. And I'm way
Your
more
husband.
gray underneath. Yeah, my my husband called me in my mid 30s as soon as I turned 30. So, um, but no, I mean, I'm going gray other places too, but it's way worse like underneath where the sun doesn't see my hair as much. So like I would just have to spend like a couple weeks like way grayer than I am if I change my part. And I think I'm not, I'm too vain to do that, but I really don't want to dye my hair either. Everyone knows exactly how old we are now. Yeah. Like, just,
The skinny jeans, the middle part.
Ankle socks.
Yeah. I know. Well, yeah, I know. It's fun. I'm trying to just embrace it. And, I think 31, I turned 31 this year. I'll just admit it. And that was a harder, 31 feels a lot older than 30. You know what I mean? Like some years you're just like, oh my gosh, 31. 30 was like, oh, I'm 30. It's kind of fun and exciting. 31 was not fun and exciting. I don't know.
As soon
But
as I turned 30, my husband started telling everyone that I was in my 30s, but he would
Hmm.
like give everyone else around me specific ages. So it sounded like I was like 39. And so anyway, 31 felt fine because I'm still in my 30s. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Now he's in his 30s too, so we can't make fun.
Sticking on this because I don't know, it's just too fun. Um, so speaking of age and I don't know what we're talking about age. Anyways,
Age, gray hair,
yeah,
fashion, being a millennial.
yes. So growing up in the South, I said ma'am and sir to everybody. Like, check out girl who's 13, you say ma'am to her, right? Like it doesn't like age is not a factor. So I've said ma'am to everyone my whole life. And then I was at this Christmas party, so this is timely, and I was talking to this girl who I thought we were around the same age. And she just kept calling me ma'am. And I was like, oh, I feel this wall being built between us
Oh my
right now.
God.
We're like,
Yeah.
she's on the young side and I'm on the old side. So I have started to not call people ma'am anymore because I'm like,
Mm.
I
It
don't,
hurts a little.
yeah, well, I was just doing it out of politeness, but I'm like,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want like somebody who's 34 and I say ma'am to them for them to suddenly have this identity
Well,
crisis like, how old is she? How old am I? Like, do
uh,
I look so old?
Anyway, well, that was fun.
That was fun.
On to winter books.
first,
I
I
feel
just
like,
need to say this is my favorite Christmas present.
oh, yeah,
Oh, yes.
Kelsey.
Guys,
Tell us
we have to
first.
talk. I needed to ask the question because I needed to answer the question. Um, guys, I got an Ember mug. Oh, it's on the other side. It says Ember. And everyone probably knows what they are and already has one, but I didn't have one. And it keeps your drink warm for up to an hour and a half.
Wow,
And if you put it on its charging coaster, which is just like a little coaster that you just have that plugged in, it'll stay warm forever,
that's
forever.
cool.
That's amazing.
And I just want to say that moms can have warm coffee too. It's so great. I like
Miracle.
thought it might be a little gimmicky, but honestly, it's been amazing. I've had it
Worth
for
it?
like, I don't know, like 2, 3 weeks now. And yeah, I haven't had cold coffee yet. It's amazing.
Question. Do you put
Yes.
cream in your coffee?
Okay, I do. And that is
Okay.
like the one downside, but honestly, I do not view it as a downside because it can make the cream a little bit weird. If you
Mm.
kind of are holding it and kind of like keep it moving, it's fine. If you like leave it on the coaster and it like heats up quick, it will like film over a little bit. But honestly, first of all, get a paper towel, grab the top out and just put it on the paper towel, back to good normal.
Hmm.
And if you put your microwave or sorry, if you put your coffee in the microwave 17 times, like I usually do, it also does that.
Mm.
So one way or another. So I always joke, people are like, how do you take your coffee? And I say microwaved 17 times. It's my
Yeah.
favorite way to drink it. But it's great. We like sit down to like do school or like and like everybody's peaceful and my coffee's still warm. I don't have to like decide if I should have cold coffee or use the microwave.
Hmm.
And when I sit down like at night with a book or in the morning with a book, my coffee will stay warm the whole time. It makes me sit so much longer. Because if I get up to warm up my coffee or my tea, then I'm gonna
Mhm.
find something else to do and I'm not reading
Right.
anymore. But cold coffee and tea is so sad. So anyway,
Yeah. I'm gonna ask
favorite
Santa.
president. I actually got two of them. So my husband also inherited the first one. Someone didn't use the Elfster list. I don't know who it was, who bought it first and who didn't mark it as purchased. But my first one was the white one. and it was a little smaller, which is like very pretty. It's aesthetically pleasing, but it's like a 10-ounce one. And then the second one I got was the blue 14-ounce one, and I like that it's blue. They're like harder to find though. Uh-oh, did we lose Hannah?
I
Did
bet
you
she
lose
I'm here.
has a kid.
Oh,
I bet she.
oh,
I'm here.
oh, your
Sorry.
video turned off. No, you can turn your video off. Sorry.
No,
I
I'm
didn't
good.
realize that when you turned your video off, it would like hide you. That's kind of nice,
Oh,
actually.
interesting.
Okay, nice. Okay, I'm here for that feature.
Okay, yeah, if I just
All
dip out, it's because people need me for a second.
No,
When I'm
no. You're fine. I wouldn't have drawn
I'm very
attention to it
popular in
except that
this
I thought
house.
you were gone. No.
Popular.
But that's a great feature, especially if we end up putting videos up
Yeah.
just to like have you disappear. Okay. Winter books.
Yay.
Who did I say I was? Oh, but now you guys are out of order. Okay, now I'm starting with Hannah and then going to Jess.
Fine.
I need the
See,
order
that
to
was
be correct on
intentional. That was my
screen.
plan.
Yeah,
No.
Hannah just wanted to go first.
Well, no, I want to go first because I wonder. I don't know. I have a few. So I have a big stack of books.
I like going last for this
And
reason,
I
actually.
know, because I'm curious if we're gonna have like the same ones. My favorite was the summer episode where we stole all of Jess's books like
That was
immediately. So I hope that is
amazing.
The first round.
in first round. That was hilarious. But that just shows you guys, we're great minds think alike.
I think
Yeah.
we did let Jess go first for the fall books because that happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We gotta like take turns. Yeah.
We made up for it. So now Hannah gets to go first.
I get to go
I
first.
like
Okay.
going last because I have extra books. So then I get to be like, oh, you took mine? Awesome. Get to one of my other ones.
Okay, a quick word on choosing the winter books. This was
Oh,
harder, I
yes.
think.
Yeah.
Did you all find this harder? I found like this one harder
I
than
did.
like summer and fall seemed way more intuitive to me. I found winter books harder. Like, and then because I guess because I was specifically thinking like I do have like Advent, Christmas tide kind of books, but obviously we're going
Mm.
like more like midwinter, at post Christmas tide, like. But so it was like at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so hard. I don't know. But then after I started thinking about it, I was like, wow, piling them up. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
saw you post on Substack if anybody had
Yeah.
any winter reads, and I really wanted to comment on it and be like, Hannah didn't do her homework.
I didn't do my homework. I know. I'm curious because I really try to do the whole like cozy this because I've told you guys this. My ideal reading posture is under a blanket, a hot cup of coffee, book in hand. So winter reading is I definitely do the most reading in the winter
Mm.
when it's cold and I don't know, it just feels fitting. But
Do you feel like you
I'm
knock a lot out in January? I feel like I'm like a
Yeah.
really good January reader. I get my year all started and then I look at how many books I've read and I'm like, I'm gonna read thousands of books this year. And then it like slowly peters off.
Yeah. Well, I actually did, and I actually, in a funny way, I'm proud of myself because this past year was the first time in years that I have not met my Goodreads reading goal, and I was like one book shy of meeting my goal, and so I really wanted to just like a binge, but I was like in the middle of a bunch of books, and I really wanted to just like binge a book
Mhm.
and finish, and I didn't. I was like, no, no, this doesn't
Good
matter.
job.
I'm not doing that. So I'm proud of myself. But I have had a good reading January so far. But winter books, all of my top 3 are Victorian novels, which is exciting. There's like an aesthetic or something of the Victorian novel. So I'm trying to decide which one I want to do first.
Well, we're not gonna
I-
overlap. I can tell you that already.
Okay, great. Perfect. Oh, wonderful. Then I don't even have to worry about it. Okay, I'll start with my shortest one first. And it is Silas Marner
And
by
it's by
George.
600 pages, and the rest of the
Okay,
Victorian
no,
ones are
listen.
longer.
Listen, for a Victorian novel, this is less than 200 pages. Okay. Well, no, sorry. Maybe it's less than 250. It's less than
That's
250.
still very short.
It's still very short for George Eliot and for a Victorian. So Silas Marner, it's wintry, I guess. Not only like physically, a lot of the scenes. There's like a famous scene in the book that's like a snowy kind of death scene that's really sad and tragic, but
Mm.
also just the themes of this book. Sort of the themes of like home. I think all of the novels that I chose have these themes of like the sort of harsh winter world versus the cozy fireside hearth kind
Mm.
of motif. And I think that that's something that I do reach for during the winter and that I think about a lot. But also just thematically, the main character, Silas Marner, he is kind of a Scrooge-like character, maybe not quite as Scrooge-like as the man himself, but you see in this story, I mean, the main plot of the story is this man's sort of cold exterior being warmed and changed by our relationship that comes into his life. I'm trying to not give away most of the plot, but
Mm.
and I think it's a really good, yeah, it's a good cozy book. It's very Victorian. I will say it's also a great audiobook, particularly because a lot of the dialogue, George Eliot's dialogue is, I mean, it's amazing. She's so good at writing dialogue, but in this one specifically, a lot of the dialogue is in like thick dialect. And I remember the first time I was reading it, I was like having a really hard time following.
Mhm.
It's like fatiguing, I think, on the mind. Even if you can follow it, it's kind of fatiguing on the mind to follow the dialect a lot. So this is also a really good winter audiobook. So Silas Marner.
I think I've started it in paper copy and then but I read most of it
Yeah.
via audiobook when the Literary Life podcast did it, which was
Oh
very
yeah.
good.
Yeah, they did it a couple years ago now.
They did it a couple years ago and they really like drew out a lot of the fairy tale imagery and
Okay.
Yeah.
things in it that
Yeah,
I
it is.
wouldn't
There's
have
a lot of
drawn
fairy
out on my
tale
own.
imagery. Yeah, it's no, it's I think it's really good. It's one of those that like you're kind of like it's a book that you're anxious sort of while you're reading it because there's a lot of things that could go wrong. There's a lot of things you're kind of worried about, but it's a good cozy book. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But it's good. Oh, but this also, I have a question though. I really wanted to put Middlemarch in this pile.
I
Oh.
thought about it,
But
but didn't make it in my pile.
I thought about it. And maybe it's just because I've reached for it in the winter, but I don't know. Because I'm thinking like the scenes that I think of with Middlemarch that come to mind are not winter
Mm-mm.
scenes. But I don't know, maybe it's just the long Victorian novels feel very wintry to me because I reach for them in the winter.
I feel like there are a few scenes that they're like sitting inside by the fire or something,
Yeah.
which I'm sure
Yeah.
they do in the spring in England too.
In England.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Middlemarch will make an appearance on our spring reads. But
Yeah.
anyway.
You have to read it in the middle of March. So
Yeah.
spring. I think of it as a winter read because the two times I've read it have been in the winter.
Yeah, me
Because the
too.
first time was like, I think like between Thanksgiving and Christmas and maybe into
Mm.
January. I read it really slow. So I just remember that. And then the second time I read it was with book club last year and it was February and March. So it feels wintry. Though it did
Yeah.
start to warm up at the end of March in the South.
Mhm.
So
All right. Jessica.
To piggyback off you said before I do my first one, I
yes.
also agree. I'll just start with honorable mentions right now. I also agree that like Dickens feels very wintry, so very Victorian.
Mm.
Something about the long novel feels very
Mhm.
Victorian. And I was also going to say fairy tales seem very
Mm.
wintry. Which it was it which episode was it where we were talking about? One of you said that often the starting point, I think, of a fairy tale was on Christmas Day. Was that
Oh,
on the Christmas Carol
it was
episode?
me quoting Angelina
There we
Stanford
go.
during the
Yeah.
Christmas Carol episode. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, fairy
Oh,
tales
that's a
feel
good. I didn't think
very
about that.
wintry.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. And the other honorable mention esque theme I'll say is that also Hannah, I knew exactly what books I was going to pick, but then when I started to like go through lists of reading just to make sure I didn't miss anything, I found more people kind of trying to insert themselves into winter, and it made me go, okay, maybe some of the great authors are not only timeless in the sense they come back year after year, but they come back season after season. Because Shakespeare really
Yeah.
wanted to insert himself into the winter.
Uh,
But then when I would think about the scenes, like you're saying with Middlemarch, if I would picture a
yeah.
scene, I'm like, well, I don't, there's not snow in any of these, you know?
Right, right. I
Um,
know. It is an interesting
yeah.
like exploration as to why our minds like, yeah, want to put certain things or why we reach for them certain times of the year. So
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So Shakespeare wanted to insert himself in. He's not on this. Jane Austen kept wanting to insert herself in.
Mm.
But again, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't
That's what I
think
really
so.
wanted there to be a
Yeah.
Winter Austen novel, but I don't think
I
there
don't
is.
think there's a Winter Austen
I wish
novel. I
there
think you
were.
can fit.
Yep.
I think you can fit her in every other season, but not
Mhm.
winter.
Yeah.
Not that you can't read it. It just like doesn't feel like a winter read.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sense
And
and
then
Sensibility is the only one,
Mhm.
and it's only because
Mhm.
we read it in December one year for book club.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. It's just because I have
Yeah.
read it in winter before.
if you go for like what's just a cozy, comfortable thing to read, maybe that's why Austen comes to
Yeah.
mind because you
Yeah.
want to reach for her in your armchair with a blanket.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jane Eyre also wanted to insert herself in simply because of the scene with her and her cousins and
Mhm.
Sijin when they're preparing for Christmas.
Yeah.
But again, you're
Yeah.
like, no, she's autumn. She's not
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah.
So, all right. So those are all the honorable mentions ish.
Woo.
So I'll start with my first actual winter read that I want to talk about, and this completely fits into what I knew I would pick, and that is a Russian book. When I think winter,
Mhm.
I think Russian books because not only are they usually cold and snowy, but very, very long.
Yep.
Um, so my first pick is Anna Karenina by Leo
Mhm.
Tolstoy.
Mm.
And I'm going to read an excerpt from it. It's not, there's nothing necessarily wintry about this excerpt. I'm just going to read it because it is beautiful and I want to sell people on reading this book if they haven't already or rereading it if they're thinking about it. Um, so the scene I want to read is from Dolly, and it is when she's in the carriage going to visit Anna Karenina. Anna has already rejected the home life. So if we're thinking about winter as a time where, the warmth of the home shines in comparison to the bleakness of the external world, Anna has already kind of broken apart her home. And Dolly has obviously stayed at the center of her home. But as on her way to Anna, she's contemplating, is it actually worth it? Um, and so I'd like to read this little section. Um, Never mind giving birth, but being pregnant, that's the pain. Dot, 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 a little bit further down. And generally, thought Dolly, looking back at the whole of her life in those 15 years of marriage, pregnancy, nausea, dullness of mind, indifference to everything, and above all, ugliness. Kitty, young and pretty Kitty, even she has lost her good looks. But when I'm pregnant, I get ugly, I know it. Labor, suffering, ugly suffering, that last moment. Then nursing, the sleepless nights, the terrible pains. Dolly shuddered at the mere recollection of the pain from cracked nipples that she had endured with almost every child. Then the children's illnesses, this eternal fear, then their upbringing, vile inclinations, education, all of it so incomprehensible and difficult, and on top of it all, death of these same children. And again there came to her imagination the cruel memory, eternally gnawing at her mother's heart, of the death of her last infant boy, who had died of croup, his funeral, the universal indifference before that small pink coffin, and her own heartrending, lonely pain before the pale little forehead with curls at the temples, before the opened, surprised little mouth she had glimpsed in the coffin, just as it was covered by the pink lid with the lace cross. And all that for what? What will come of it all? And she continues. So, some of the winter themes in here, loss, obviously. Um, Winter can often come at a time where we're wondering, so it's the death of the year, but we're also looking forward to the year starting again. And so we're like, what is the purpose of all this? So that passage seemed to fit in the winter. And spoiler alert, which is a good spoiler, she has all of these deep and poignant and relatable thoughts. She goes to visit Anna, and she actually comes away from visiting Anna rejuvenated to go back and to continue to keep the home life strong. Um, Seeing that the answer is not to leave the home for the external world,
Mhm.
that that's a mirage. So there we go. There's my
Oh,
first
that's
choice.
so beautiful. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this because one of my kids is really into Greek mythology, and his favorite myth is the myth of Persephone and Demeter.
That was
And
my favorite.
yeah, he's so into that. And
Hmm.
I find that such a lovely image that, the Greeks accounted for the existence of winter by a bereaved mother missing her
Hmm.
child for
Hmm.
half of the year, and I just thought that's such a lovely image that comes to me sometimes in winter.
Mm,
That reminds me of what you read.
I like that. Oh, Anna's another book that I need to reread. I only read it the one time we read it with book club and I liked it, but I was pregnant and really sick. So I listened to pretty much the whole thing. And I like even while reading it, I really wanted to reread it, like sitting down and reading it. Maybe, oh, I have so many long books I want to read this year. I
I
don't know if I'll
know.
get to it. What, do you know what translation of Anna you have, Jess? Is that, I don't know if Tolstoy, like, does it matter as much? I just have like a Barnes and Noble classic, but I know you have do you have the Penguins classic?
I have the Penguin Classics. I don't know where I got this version, so I definitely got this before I was even thinking about translations.
Okay.
And so this one's translated by Richard Pavier and
Okay.
Larissa Volokhonsky.
Oh yeah, that's the
I
people
was not
say
thinking that I was going to make you say Russian names on the air. I'm sorry. Like,
It's all right.
that's
next time I'll
I
ask you to
don't
type
have
them.
I don't know about Anna Karenina, but I know for the War and Peace, people say
Mm.
that's the
Oh,
translator.
good.
I'm not going to say the name, but I remember when I was getting
Penguin,
War and Peace, that's what they were saying is that was the best one.
I feel like Penguin Classics it does a good job at choosing translations in
Uh-huh.
general. Like they're just, but whereas the Barnes and Noble classics, I know I've definitely read not as good translations
Mm.
before. Um, but they're pretty, so I always like find them at used bookstores and just grab them. But anyway, I want to check my translator before I reread it. But anyway, all right. All right, I'm gonna go not fiction for mine. I'm gonna go with a
Mm.
memoir. And part of the reason I'm putting this one on here is first of all because I've read it in winter multiple times, but also because it's one that probably a lot of people haven't heard of, and I really like it. It's called, I'll show it to you too. It's called What Falls from the Sky. And now that you've seen
Mm.
the title or the picture on the front, that also might really influence why it's a winter book because it's, for anyone just listening, there's snow falling into someone's hands. So it does feel like a winter book. But it is a memoir about a woman who like goes completely cold turkey, gives up all of her like media technology. So like even like her Wi-Fi. She like gets rid of their Wi-Fi
Mm.
in their house. Um so like she's not even using email. So it's like very drastic. And then she like writes a memoir. I think it's for 6 months she does it. And I think she starts it in the winter is why I think about it,
Mm.
but I could be wrong about that. It might just be from the picture. But it's one that I've read in January a lot of times as I like start the new year and make New Year's resolutions. And it's really good. It's really painful for her, obviously. Like she's not even emailing people. And I can't remember. I think they keep their home phone, but like she doesn't have a cell phone or anything.
Wow.
Or at least she doesn't have texting. Maybe she has a cell phone for,
Hmm.
I can't remember. It's been like probably 2 or 3 years since I've read it, but I've read it a couple times. But she's actually, I think she was influenced to do it from reading Walden by Thoreau.
Mm.
So
Oh,
there's like a lot of Walden quotes throughout. And I can't remember if she's influenced by it and then did it or if she read Walden during the experiment.
mm.
But either way, so it feels like a little literary too. Um, if you are reading it on my recommendation and then get to certain parts, she does end up like having a conversion experience. Like she's not Christian at all, but she ends up going to like a very liberal Protestant church that like
Mm.
has a one pastor. And I think when she gets baptized, it is like not the proper form. So just I'm not endorsing everything in it. I think it's really cool she has a conversion experience. I hope she maybe found another church after that. But
Nice.
but just the technology thing. I like reading it. It's one of those books that if you get into it, you could read it in a couple nights. It's not super long. And I don't know, a good memoir, I can just
Mm.
page through it when I want to. So anyway, What Falls from the Sky, it's by Esther Emery is the
Mm.
author. I don't remember where I heard about it for the first time. Probably I really have no idea where I heard about it, but it's
Mm.
great. I
Mm.
really like it.
Nice. A little
All right,
nonfiction.
Hannah. Yeah, if there's some
Okay.
nonfiction in there, it'll be the only one on my list.
I my next book, um, I'm actually more excited now because I made a discovery about this book. It is Villette by Charlotte Bronte.
Oh.
This is a funny book, and I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. When I was reading this book a few years ago, I didn't like it. Like the whole time I was reading it, I was like, oh, I'm not really liking this, I'm not really liking this. But after I put it down, like I finished it, after I put it down, I felt like I loved it. Like it was just, I rarely have that experience, but it was a book that just the images and experience of reading it has really stayed with me. And I love it. And it feels very wintry. So it's Charlotte and Anne Bronte, if you've read their novels, very similar themes going on, very similar like sort of plot setup to something like Jane Eyre or like Agnes Grey, where it's like the young woman who needs to, find a way to make the living for herself. And but the main character in this book is Lucy Snow. So I recently discovered that in the original draft of this book, her name was Lucy Frost. So apparently, this winter kind of theme was really important to Charlotte Bronte when she was writing. There's a lot of scenes that really stick out, like winter scenes. So uh, it takes place in Belgium.
Hmm.
And so it's like an English transplant to Belgium. She's, sort of the same scenario of I believe she's working in a girls' school and just sort of wrestling with like being an expat living abroad, and some of the same themes like we saw in Jane Eyre, but the same things that we've brought up of just the idea of home life and again the sort of cold outdoors versus life by the hearth really come through. So I have a quote I want to read here. um I'm not even going to set it up. It's just a general quote that it's just really lovely writing. It says, "How often, while women and girls sit warm at snug firesides, their hearts and imaginations are doomed to divorce from the comfort surrounding their persons, forced out by night to wander through dark ways, to dare stress of weather, to contend with the snow blast, to wait at lonely gates and stiles in wildest storms, watching and listening to see and hear the father, the son, the husband coming home." Um, One of the things you see in this book particularly is this idea of um, Lucy sort of wrestling with falling in love and what it means to have a relationship with a man. This book is more of a tragedy than Jane Eyre, I would say. So it's definitely something you should, there's definitely those cozy elements, but it's definitely one that leaves you like thinking. And some people don't like it, I think, for the trajectory of the story. But I think it's really worth reading. And I think it's a great winter read. Again, there's a lot of physical, like snowy scenes. But also just an interesting, and I also think there is something interesting about books in the winter that sort of depict like travels and traveling abroad and just sort of different scenes and different experiences that the characters are having maybe. And maybe there is something nice about sitting under your cozy blanket in your armchair and reading about these experiences. My next book also has some of that. But yeah, Villette, I think it's great. I want to reread it because even though, like I said, I wasn't enjoying it while I read it, it really, a lot of the images and themes like stuck with me. And I mean, as usual, Charlotte Bronte's way with words is just lovely. So
After reading Jane Eyre, I do want to reread Villette because I didn't love it the first time. But again, that was the same. That might have
yeah,
been the book we read like a book or two before Anna Karenina. And I think I was pregnant and sick or I had a newborn. I don't know. It could have been
yeah.
really any of those things. But I listened to it. And I don't do great when I listen to things for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
On rereads,
We
it's fine. But I have to really focus.
we read Villette in December of 2022. That's when we read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I was just postpartum. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that fits too.
Yep.
Yeah, and
We
it's long. I think it's a bit longer than Jane Eyre, or
Is
maybe I
it?
don't know,
I have
maybe
like a
about the
really
same, a little
ugly
longer.
copy too. I have like a
Yeah,
just like a mass market paperback. So
yeah.
it wasn't like, oh, I like love pulling out this book and I'm a little vain with my books, I guess. I
I
really
think
do
it could
care.
also be one that like if you read Jane Eyre and you're obsessed with Jane Eyre, and then you pick up Villette because it's like her other big novel,
Mm,
it's definitely different. And
Mhm.
it's again, it's the same thing. It's hard because it's a similar setup with Jane Eyre of like, a young
Mhm.
girl kind of off on her own trying to make her life and her living.
mm.
And um but different enough that it's yeah, I think it's worth reading. I think it's good. I think all the Brontes are
We
good.
we read it in 22 because my Bronte Austen professor had said that Villette was her favorite one. And so I
Mm.
read it in grad school and had not liked it then and wanted to read it again. And we all read it together. And some people liked it more than others. I think what's funny about Bronte is often the main character herself can make you like it or not,
Mm,
regardless of whether the writing is good, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously Villette is a great,
Yeah.
excellently written book. And I'm interested, Jane Eyre did not love until our third
yeah.
time reading it. So I've only read Villette twice. So I wonder if Lucy
Mm.
Snow would grow on me, especially with time.
Mm.
Um,
Did
I know.
you did you not love it when we read it at book club? Okay.
Nope, I didn't like it a second time, only because Lucy Snow aggravates me, but she aggravated me for similar reasons to as Jane Eyre, the character.
Yeah.
And I think that's for like temperament reasons.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with and trying to like overcome similar things as the main character in the book, and that main character doesn't overcome them well, they can be rather
Yeah.
frustrating. And I think that, so I think it was like a personal reason, because the other people in the room who had completely different temperaments from me and from Lucy Snow loved it. Um,
Okay.
I'm thinking
I'm
of a couple of the women in particular.
well,
Yeah.
I think reading Shirley would be really neat. Charlotte
Yeah,
Bronte
I've
is
never
another
read
one
Shirley. I read
that has a very likable character. Well, I guess for me it
there's
was.
what's the another one that she has? Is it the professor's house
the
or the
professor's
professor?
house. I
Wait,
don't know. Willa Cather has a book
I
called either
know,
The
and I'm
Professor's
mixing
House
it up,
or The Professor,
but it's
and
one
Charlotte
of
Bronte
them.
is the other one.
Yes, it's one of them
Our
because
assistant's on it.
I got like 50 pages in and I was really liking it, but I just it didn't, kind of grip me. But again, it's the same. It is
It's
hard. I think sometimes it's hard to like I'll say this. Something I love about like Dickens is that all of his novels, I mean, it's some people will laugh at me saying this. All of his novels are very different in terms of the types of characters, the types of voice he's using, the types of setup and plot are vastly different. And I admire that in an author to sort of be able to kind of go in and out of lots of different voices. Like he in Bleak House, the main voice is a female voice that's like a young Esther Summerson, and he does that so well, and he's applauded for his ability to write that female voice. But then he's an old man at times. Like, and I like that. Whereas I do think sometimes with the Brontes, it's like, okay, oh, cool. Another young,
mhm,
poor girl who's going to be a governess. Like, wonder what's
mhm,
going to happen. But I mean, and again, don't get me wrong. I love Jane Eyre. I love Villette, but it is kind of like, okay, interesting. Like,
mhm.
I think I've only read Jane Eyre and Villette, and I love Jane Eyre, and I didn't love Villette. But again, it
Yeah.
was first read, so we'll see. But I need to dip into more
Yeah.
Brontes. Jess, did you figure out the name?
Yeah, it's the professor. So we didn't
Okay.
in my
Okay.
Bronte and Austen class, we didn't touch the professor, and we
Hmm.
only did Charlotte Bronte. We didn't do the other Brontes. So we did Jane
Okay.
Eyre, Villette, and Shirley, which makes me wonder if the professor, like if she chose to leave it out. I don't know if universally it's
Yeah.
thought of a lower
Well,
standard, or if
so
that was a personal choice on her
the
part.
interesting thing is I read somewhere that the professor is a lot more like autobiographical
Hmm.
and that she had an experience of living abroad with and having I don't think romance is the right word, but falling in love with a married professor. And I think
Yes.
the story sort of mirrors that. So I know it seems like
Oh, that sounds
interesting.
stressful.
I know, I know. But anyway, it sounds interesting, but I haven't read it.
I'm
So
stressed.
I do recommend Villette, and I do recommend it as a winter read. I think that's definitely a
Cool.
winter book. So,
All right.
right,
Thanks.
Jessica.
Jess.
My next pick is actually we're going to take a break from the Russians. I already shouted this. I already shouted this book out before in our like favorite books of 2024. But it's a very winter read, so I will shout out here, and that is Murder in the Cathedral by T.S. Eliot. Um, and we already talked about it on the other podcast, so I will just read one of the opening lines that feels very like winter. Since golden October declined into somber November, and the apples were gathered and stored, and the land became brown, sharp points of death in a waste of water and mud, the new year waits, breathes, waits, whispers in darkness while the laborer kicks off a muddy boot and stretches his hand to the fire. The new year waits, destiny waits for the coming. Who has stretched out his hand to the fire and remembered the saints at All Hallows, remembered the martyrs and saints who wait? Who shall stretch out his hand to the fire and deny his master? Who shall be warmed by the fire and deny his master? Yeah.
Mm,
I love T.S. Eliot.
beautiful. Yes.
That's
Oh,
it.
I've not read any T.S. Eliot yet. In my literary confessions, I would like to.
Mhm.
All right. My next one, I actually don't have a copy of with me, and because I think I've briefly mentioned it before, because I couldn't find my copy then either. I'm pretty sure Aaron lent it to a student. Um,
Mm.
but and maybe he just gave it to the student. Maybe that's why we haven't gotten it back yet. So, student, if you're out there, it's okay. You can keep it. I'll order another one soon. But I need to remember because I might want to read it this winter. So, my second one is Peace Like a River by Leif Anger.
Mm.
We did it for book club a couple years ago, and I was trying to keep book club books not off the list, but like if there were other ones, like mention things that, I don't talk about all the time. But we did it long enough ago that a lot of people probably weren't with us when we did it. So, Peace Like a River. It it's about I'm actually trying to figure out what I can say without totally spoiling anything. Um, I guess the reason I chose it is because it starts with the scene where they are goose hunting in the middle of winter in the Midwest, and like they're freezing, like they're just like actually cold. And there's so many scenes like that. There's another scene where the family is traveling in like the dad's truck with like an Airstream being towed behind them, and I think the heat in the truck is broken, so they're just like freezing and like bundled
Mm.
up under like, all the coats and blankets. And but they're where are they? Jess, do you remember where they're from? Where it is Midwest.
I know
They
they go to
go
the
they
Badlands.
that they go to the Badlands. That's what I was gonna say. They're from somewhere in the Midwest. Sorry for anyone who's like yelling at their phone. They go to the Badlands, but it's just like very like bleak, wintry the whole time. The cover of the book is like white and blue, snowy scene. Um, but if you haven't read it, it is like it alludes to the Western genre a lot, but it's not like purely a Western in itself either. Um, so if you're not like a big Western fan, you'll probably still like it. But it follows this family as the oldest son in the family commits a crime, and um it's set in Minnesota. Our
No.
secretary just got back to us. Sorry, I saw it in the chat. Um, thank you, secretary. Um, the oldest son of the family commits a crime. He is guilty, but it is semi justified. It is semi justified. Maybe that's kind of a question throughout the book. And then he ends up escaping from prison instead of standing trial, and the family goes after him to try to find him, but so does an FBI agent who is trying to find him as well. So
Mm.
there is like this like page turnerness of like, are they going to find him? But there's also like a romantic story in the background, and there's also this like family story, and there's also like the main character or the narrator is the middle brother who is really likable, and then the younger sister is also one of the most likable characters I read in literature. She reminds me a lot of Scout Finch. Um,
Mm.
and she's like a big lover of Western novels, and she, I think, is like writing her own Western. I don't even think it's a novel. I think it's like an epic poem, if I'm remembering
Oh.
correctly. Maybe that's not the right word, but I feel like there's poetry involved, and I feel like it rhymes. Um, anyway, if you haven't read it, it's great. It's like probably 300 pages, maybe a little bit less. So it's one you could read fairly quickly. It's modern. I've read a few of his other novels and have not liked any of them nearly as much as Peace Like a River. But I am in the middle of his most modern novel right now, or his most recent novel. Now I can't remember what it's called. It's on my shelf somewhere. I'll have to go look later. Um,
What's the second one?
it's bothering me.
Isn't there one that comes after Peace Like a River? Or
It's not a series, but he has a
okay.
few. So Brave, Young, and Handsome, I think might be before Peace Like a River.
Okay.
And then afterwards, Virgil Wander.
Okay, that's what I was
And
thinking.
that one, I was wondering if I'd read more Virgil or maybe more Dante. I'm not even sure, but
Mm,
maybe I would like it more because Peace Like a River has so many biblical allusions
mm,
that and a lot of especially Old Testament allusions. Like the oldest son's name is David, the dad's name is Jeremiah, the
mm,
narrator's name is Reuben. And then there's like they talk about like the Old Testament story of Jonah a lot. They talk about like what it is to like be a prophet. So there's like
mm,
so anyway, I because I did go to Bible school and I'm married to a Bible teacher, those allusions like really got to me and like filled the
mm.
story. Whereas Virgil Wander, obviously he's the main character's named Virgil. And but I don't know if I was fully getting it. Actually, I'm not sure if the main character is named Virgil. I'm pretty sure he is, but if you've read it recently and that's not true, I haven't read it in years and I've only read it once. But it's called Virgil Wander, so I'm assuming there are references. But I didn't get them quite as much. So anyway, Peace Like a
Mm.
River. But
Sweet.
all right. Hannah,
Okay, I'm changing my
is
list.
this your last one? Is your last
Yeah, this
one?
is my
Oh,
last one
I'm
of my top
changing my
three.
list as we go. Yeah,
No,
no.
I know.
It's a
I'm
moving
changing it.
list.
I said they were all Victorians. I'm going to save my last Victorian for the honorable mentions because I want to stick with my tradition of shouting out a detective novel in my top three for every season because there is a detective novel for, I mean, every day of the year, every season of the year. There's always the detective novel. And I will say, if you've listened to our past episodes, I try because I love detective stories. I try to shout out detective stories that are more like a little off the beaten path. Like you may not have heard of this one. This one is not that. This one you have definitely heard of. You've probably read, but I'm going to shout it out because it's the perfect winter cozy mystery. And it is The Murder on the Orient Express.
Mm.
It is, I mean, can you think of a more?
Nope.
This
Perfect.
is the winter book. I mean, it's literally a train is snowed in and a murder is committed on the train. And guess who's there? Hercule Poirot. And he's gonna figure it out. I think yeah, I mean, I think it's great. It's a great story. It's people accuse her of, you know, messing with the conventions a little too much with this story, but I totally respect it. I think it's totally well done. Um, yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of humor in it. It's funny, it's interesting. The cast of characters is super interesting. The mystery itself, it's one of those that like if you've read it once, you don't forget. You know, some of those you go back to reread and you're like, "Oh, I don't quite remember." This one you're never going to forget, but it's still good. It's still worth rereading. Um, and I will say, you know, some people don't like the story and the way she wraps everything up, but I actually think her nuance and the sort of themes of um justice versus vengeance and what is justice, what is true
Mm.
justice, what do we do when the justice system fails, and the way that Poirot wrestles with that in the novel is really good. I do have to say two things about the film versions of this story. First, this was the first one that Kenneth Branagh put out. If you guys have been watching the Kenneth Branagh Poirot, I think he's done three now. Four, three, maybe just three. I know he did this one. He
Three
did
that
Death
I
on the
know of.
Nile. Yeah, and then he changed the name. He did the Halloween party, but he changed the name to The Haunting in Venice.
Yes.
And so I actually love The Murder on the Orient Express, the Kenneth Branagh version. Just the acting is superb.
Hmm.
I mean, they bring Johnny Depp in. Like the cast is great, but I don't like how they do the ending on that one. And without giving it away, I don't want to get into details. But I will say, if you're gonna watch that movie, first read the book. Then, if you're gonna watch the Kenneth Branagh version, also go and watch the old David Suchet version of The Murder on the Orient Express. First of all, there's only one Poirot, and it's David Suchet. I'm just gonna say that. I love Kenneth Branagh, but he's not Poirot. Other than he does get the mustache better. He does, you know, Suchet doesn't quite nail the mustache. But I think that the David Suchet version gets the ending and the nuance and the struggle
Hmm.
that Poirot has way, way better. I think that the Kenneth Branagh version kind of politicizes the novel in a way that I really don't like, and that I think is not doing justice to what Christie's actually doing. I think if you read the novel, Christie is really exploring something that's actually really profound and not a simple
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
And I think the movie just the new movie just doesn't do it justice. But it's still worth watching. Like it's good, but just you got to know it's like definitely an interpretation, and there's a lot more interpretive bias, I would say, in that one. So just watch both. It's great. Make a whole, weekend of it. Finish the novel on a Thursday, Friday night. It's David Suchet, then Kenneth Branagh version. It's great. So there you
But
go.
for those who aren't watching the video, I was nodding as Hannah spoke the whole time because I agreed on everything you said. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Oh, it's good. I actually, Nate and I were laughing that we realized that movie, the Kenneth Branagh version, that was the last movie we ever saw in theaters because
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it
that
came
was
out right
Murder on the
before
Orient Express.
Murder on the Orient
That
Express.
was 2017. I have it pulled up.
Yeah, 2017. We yeah, that was and I don't know if maybe it hit theaters like early 2018 because I think it was like soon before our oldest child was born. And guess what we don't do now that we have kids is get a babysitter for long enough to go to dinner and a movie. Usually it's
Yeah.
just dinner. Then we come back. One day we'll go. Maybe we'll catch another Branagh film for our next one in 20 years or so.
That's funny.
Anyway,
You made
yeah.
me look up the date of the last movie my husband and I saw, and it was 2021. So
Okay, you beat us.
slight,
What was
slightly
it? What was it?
Dune, the first Dune.
Oh, yeah. Another literary
Hmm.
movie. That's good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
What's your third, Jess?
Time for my third one. So I'm going Russian, going back to the Russians again, but going Russian written by an American. So y'all should know who this is now.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
a
this
gentleman
helps
in
me.
my
Thanks.
Okay, good.
Oh, cheers.
Everyone's holding up their copies.
Yeah.
This book is called A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles.
Cheat.
Oh man, what to say? Okay, why is this a winter read? First, it's set in Russia. Second, it's delightful.
Mhm.
You could, oh my goodness, the way Amor Towles writes, it is so literarily referential.
Mhm.
So you get to have the fun of being like, oh, I know that book, or I've listened to that song. The Count, the main character, he is happy. He's delightful.
Yes.
But then additionally, it's winter because as the novel goes on, you get these footnotes from the author, the narrator. Which one? Not sure. Maybe he's kind of playing with things there. These footnotes that will tell you what was going on in Russia as this book is going on. So the Count is a very positive person, and this is set in so it's in the 50s, but it starts 1922 is when the book starts,
Oh,
and
wow.
it ends in 19. It's a very specific timeline for this book. If anyone gets there before me, you can go
I was gonna
ahead.
say, if you can do math, you can do it, but I can't remember what the exact math is. The timeline like doubles and then to like the middle of the book, and then it halves itself. But I can't remember how it does it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
so here I have it written up here. So it's from 1922 to 1954. Yes, and he has a very, like Kelsey's saying, a very strict structure for how he does the dates, which is really, really cool.
I want to reread
But
that too now.
yeah, it's so beautiful. The audio version is also so nice. I have turned it on just to have something pleasant to listen to. But I'm going to read one passage from it. And it is a passage where the Count is talking to a friend of his. I won't, so there's no spoilers, a friend of his. And I'll just read it and then I'll mention why I love it. Or maybe I won't. I'll tell you what is convenient, he said after a moment. And this is the Count speaking. To sleep in until noon and have someone bring you your breakfast on a tray. To cancel an appointment at the very last minute. To keep a carriage waiting at the door of one party so that on a moment's notice you can whisk you away to another. To sidestep marriage in your youth and put off having children altogether. These are the greatest conveniences, Anushka. And at one time, I had them all. But in the end, it has been the inconveniences that have mattered to me most.
Oh, somebody needs to just like cross stitch
Yes.
that on a mom's pillow.
Yes. Yes. And some of the things that make this so beautiful is this Count who is from the aristocracy. He has been put on house arrest in the Metropole Hotel in the middle of Moscow, and he cannot leave or he will be shot on sight. Um, and this, he grows despite never leaving the one location he's in. So I had the Benedictine vow of stability was in my mind. Like, I will work out my salvation here in this place. He doesn't bring that in, but that was in the back of my mind. Um, and then also in this little paragraph here, um, one of the beauties of this book is Amor Towles, as an American writer, um, draws out some of the issues in Russian society and compares them to America, but he kind of draws out some of the cracks in the foundation of consumerism in America as well. So this little paragraph came on the heels of them talking about all the luxuries and conveniences in America, the dishwashers, the garage door openers, the vacuum cleaners. Again, this is the 1950s, so these are new inventions. And the Count says it's been the inconveniences that have mattered to him most, especially children.
Yeah, I think that's so. I mean, yeah, I also had that book on my list because I was thinking. I also just think the idea of the way this book explores like freedom and what is freedom, and the way that the Count is sort of juxtaposed with some of the other figures, like his friends, but then just also other people that are kind of coming in and out of his life through their coming in and out of the hotel. And just the way, something that I thought was so beautiful about this book is the way that despite being like literally confined to a specific place, and in some ways it's like his experience is so limited, his potential for experience is so limited. At the same time, he lives this full life, and he surrounds himself with things and people and beauty that offer him this rich life
Yes.
of experiences. And it's kind of going back to your earlier quote from Anna Karenina, just the idea that like the home life is not, while the home is like in one sense like a haven from the outside world, it's like part of our job is like makers and cultivators of the home life is to bring truth and goodness and beauty into our home, to create those rich lives and experience that are outside, maybe without having to go through some of the things that you do in the outside world. So I think that yeah, he does such a good job in that book of exploring those themes.
Well said.
All right. This isn't my last book, but I'm just going to jump off of Jess's. Sorry, there's a really loud siren. We live really near the fire station, but I actually don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a fire siren. So I'm going to jump off Jess's last pick and just shout out really quick Rules of Civility, which is another Amor Towles book that's very wintry, but I just reread it, so I might talk about it on our What We're Reading episode that's coming up soon, so I won't talk about it too much. But it starts on New Year's of 1937 and goes until basically New Year's of 1938. So it takes place through the whole course of a year, but the start and the end are both on New Year's. And so with like the weather and like the winter in New York, but also, so this one takes place in the United States, in New York City in 1938, almost exclusively. And you get to see the like post-depression era of the city. But like when like your narrator in this one is a woman, and anyway, it's fun to see her. She's kind of like climbing the ranks in like the New York's elite. And you also, if you've read A Gentleman in Moscow, you get to meet Richard van der Weil as a like 22-year-old young man. And he's very different. He's called Dickie in the book. And I didn't like realize they were the same character until I reread the book. So I was like, wait a second. So that's fun too. But yeah, very fun. It also has all like the New Year's resolution type themes going on because it starts on New Year's Eve and they really are like making resolutions, and it like follows those characters through the year. So very fun. I recommend it, but it's not my last book. That was just cheating. Okay. My last book. I'm trying to decide between two. I'm gonna go Little Women because we don't talk about Little Women enough on this
perfect.
podcast.
That's true.
So Little Women. I have this cute little penguin, or no, it's Puffin in Bloom.
Mm.
It's by Penguin, um, but yeah, Little Women. I think mostly because it starts with that Christmas scene is why I think of
Mhm.
it as a winter book. And then there's
Mhm.
another Christmas scene in it too. Also, honestly, the movie with Winona Ryder from the 90s, I feel like has a lot of like very picturesque scenes that are like in the snow and but just like for something to read during the winter, it's kind of long, but not like insanely long. This one looks long, but the font is very, very big. Um, but yeah, I feel like just the themes of like family and them all being there, I feel like they're just like in the house together so much. Like a lot of the scenes are them together in front of the fire, and it just seems very wintry. I could also see it being like a spring read too, because there are other scenes that are very much more spring. I really do think of novels in like what I can picture scenes in like the most memorable scenes in my head seem like when I should read that book. And
Mm.
I think we read this in December for book club, like before we were even making our own lists. So I think the last time I read it was probably in December, like 6 years ago,
Mm.
which means
Mm.
I should reread it. Was it 6 years ago? Wow, that's a long time. But anyway, Little Women. I feel like lots of people can say lots of things, so feel free.
Yeah. I mean, agreed.
Agreed.
That's it.
That's it as well.
Good choice.
All right.
Good choice.
We should probably start wrapping up, but let's all do some
Yeah.
honorable mentions. If you have any saved, I definitely saved a few.
Yeah.
Jess really
I don't.
helped me out by choosing Gentlemen in Moscow, and then I could
Mm.
cheat and shout out Rules of Civility.
Yeah.
All right, Hannah, do you have any since
Okay,
it's
I
your
just have a
turn?
couple. I don't have a ton. I will say that the other one that was going to be in my top three, but I booted it for Poirot, is Little Dorrit by
That's
Charles
Oh.
not what I
Dickens.
thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly could, I was going back and forth about which one of his novels. I mean, even Great Expectations, I think has some winter vibes. I mean, the opening scene, if you remember with Pip in the graveyard, I mean, it's very
Yeah.
iconic and wintry and cold. But I think I chose Little Dorrit because one, I do, like I said, I think winter is the time I want to cozy up with a big, long, 900 pager. Um, and Little Dorrit specifically it's a really interesting story. It's basically it follows Amy Dorrit, who's the main character, and her when you first meet her, she lives with her father and her sister in a debtor's prison. Her father lived very extravagantly, and they have kind of lost their fortunes and have been in the debtor's prison. Then there's a sort of it's kind of complicated. I won't get it all, but basically, through some stroke of fortune, he ends up inheriting a large fortune. And it's the theme of sort of what Amy is this very wise, moderate, humble person, and she's trying to reckon with her father, who,
Mm.
yeah, sort of. Anyway, these are honorable mentions. I'm not supposed to give a lot of details. Basically, the idea of just how people use their wealth to make a home, what a home looks like, and
Mm.
it really prevalent. This book specifically, though, I was thinking of because they end up traveling to the Swiss Alps. And there's some really iconic scenes that take place during their travels. They're staying in the chateaus on the Swiss Alps and there's snow
Mm.
and it's just really interesting and yeah, a great one. Also, Bleak House was
I
another
was gonna
one
say,
that I think is good.
I
Yeah.
have not read Bleak House, but I have it in my pile because I read the first like couple paragraphs a few months ago
Yes.
and was like, I think I have to wait till winter.
It's winter.
It's
It
like
is.
November when it starts. Like the first scene, it just describes the weather, and I was like, it's too warm still.
Yeah, well, it's another
Save
one
it.
too that it's like hard because there's a lot of scenes that are very summery and that stand out in my mind about Bleak House, but it has I think also the themes of Bleak House are very winter as well. But yeah, I think
My Everyman's Classic literally says, the fog and cold that permeate Bleak House mirror Victorian England mired in spiritual insolvency. So anyway,
boom.
um, Everyman's Classic also thinks you need to read it in the winter, I'm
Yeah,
pretty
even
sure.
Our Mutual Friend too, though. Doesn't Our Mutual
That's true.
Friend
Yeah.
feel really wintry? Like I think there's
Yes.
something about the
See, but I read it
Victorians.
in the
They were
spring, so
just
now
kind
I
of
think
yeah,
it's spring.
yeah. Good call. Yeah. So I think all any of those like longer, other than I think David Copperfield is a summer book, but besides David
Oh,
Copperfield, I think most of those longer Dickens novels I would put in the winter. Again, there's no wrong time to read them, but Um,
Because they're so long, I feel like I need to have like a lot of time, and winter feels like the longest season. Even though I live in North Carolina, it's not the longest season,
yeah.
it's not cold the whole time. But I also want to read Bleak House this winter, so I think that's why I
Yay.
like in my mind it's already a winter book because I have a goal of reading it. So anyway, ask me in like 6 months if I actually read it.
Woo.
See.
And then other honorable mentions, I think you guys have taken them mostly. The only other one I had is the Narnia series. I
Mm.
mean, I think
Oh,
even I
yeah.
mean, at least Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe for sure, because of the, snow. But and I mean, why not shout it out? We've shouted out every other one, is the Lord of the Rings. I'm reading the Lord of the Rings right now, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm in the I just finished the Two Towers. I'm in the Return of the King, and it's feeling very wintry. Maybe the Fellowship I would see more as like summer/fall, but I feel like I don't know. I think it fits in the winter.
Did I already? I think maybe I already said this, but I'll say it again if anybody didn't. I think if you start on Hobbit Day in September,
Yeah.
The Fellowship is a fall book, The Two Towers is a
Hmm.
winter book because it's kind of slog, and
Hmm.
then The Return of the King is a spring book because New
Hmm.
Hope.
Yes. No, I know. I'm thinking again. I guess I'm
The
thinking of the Midwest
appendices for the
winter that
summer.
ends like end of March.
That's
That's we have a long
fair.
lot of days. In fact, I was laughing because I downloaded the 1,000 Hours Outside app because I'm determined to spend 1,000 hours outside with my kids. And the first like 2 days of the year, even though it was like 25 degrees, we like went outside for like a half hour, whatever. I'm kind of a wimp because I'm pregnant, and so my coat doesn't button all the way
Mm.
already, even though I'm only 15 weeks, so that's unfortunate. So I'm kind of a wimp about it. But we did 30 minutes or twice. Well, today, but then it's been in like the low 20s, like high teens for the last like week. But today I got a notification from the app. It was like, don't forget to track your hours. And it's like,
Like, I don't have
I'm
any.
not tracking them. I'm just not getting them. So that's the
Hey,
problem.
if you go camping, you get to log that
I
whole
know,
24-hour
right?
plus period. So I'm just saying that can really get you ahead.
I'm counting on that.
I think I don't go outside enough because I have a lot of kids and I don't like to go places and we homeschool and I like sitting on the couch with the book in the like in the warmth.
Hmm.
And I usually like exercise inside because it's just easier to not have to like take all the kids. So anyway, but the kids like to rollerblade, but it's like we live on like a street that people drive kind of fast on. So when the 2-year-old wants to go out, I feel like I need to go out with him. So anyway, I've been going out and I got a really comfortable camp chair for Christmas. So I've been setting up my camp chair in like the sunniest part of the driveway, sitting like on a blanket and then wrapping another blanket around me and putting a blanket in my lap. Also, it's not nearly as cold here as it is in Illinois. But and like putting my hat on and then like podcast editing or like doing something that's like I don't have to do like too much with my fingers. But and I've been doing that and watching, and I'm calling it my plan to get more vitamin D.
Nice.
Maybe I'd feel better if I saw the sun. But that's been fun. All right, Jess, do you have any honorable mentions?
Yes, I will mention two Russians. Um, so The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. It has
You
to be
can only read
winter.
it in the winter. Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah,
Too depressing.
yeah. And then the other one, we need to like do him at Reading Revisited. We got to figure out a way. It's hard to incorporate
Mm.
Russians. So, the book
Because
I'm
they're so
holding up,
long.
the book I'm holding up is by Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Mm.
So what I've read of his is Cancer Ward. I also read his, at least Peter Kraef's, like review or where he read parts of his address to Harvard as their
Mm.
graduating address. That's kind of a famous one where they brought him in there because they thought he was going to critique the Soviet Union, which he had plenty of critiques for because he was in a gulag. And then he started to critique the West
Mm.
what will lead to our downfall. And that's kind of when he
Mm.
went out of favor in Western academia, at least American. Um, he's amazing. But also, I mean, it's so important to read Russian literature because you're like,
Have
I
you
don't
read?
want this society. Like, this is really good to understand that this is a possibility and no one wants it.
Have you read A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich?
You have. I
Okay,
have
I have.
not.
It's
Yes.
only 160 pages, is all I'm saying. A little bit easier to work in somewhere. Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe some good Russian short stories. We did those, I guess, already, but
Yeah. I don't, I
but
mean,
Cancer
those are
Ward, why?
fine.
How long is Cancer Ward? It looks
It's a
pretty
long
long.
one.
It's pretty,
It's
pretty
long.
long.
It's 530 pages.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
compared to like Anna Karenina, like
Not
so if we put
800
Anna
or
Karenina on one side and the Brothers
yeah.
Karamazov on the other, where like on the scale of depressing is it?
Um,
I think Anna
more.
Karenina is less depressing than um
Ivan
Brothers Karamazov.
or so you'd say Anna's the happiest. The Brothers K is
Which
less
is like if
happy.
you know how Anna ends, that's like not a good. I didn't feel depressed the whole time I was reading Anna, whereas
No.
Brothers
Uh-uh.
Karamazov, I feel like it's a lot
Yeah.
the whole time.
Definitely way more than Brothers Karamazov. So think
More
about
depressing.
when, yes,
More depressing? Okay.
yes.
You're
Think
not selling
about,
me.
I'm not trying to. Think about when Tolstoy and Dostoevsky were writing. They were like thinking these new ideas were going to lead to a great society. And Solzhenitsyn is writing after that great new society was created. And he's like, it's terrible. All the neighbors reported on each other and sent each other to gulags for the rest of
Oh,
their lives. Not
it's so
great.
depressing. So
And there's enough
depressing.
people you can just keep sending them to Siberia and you don't run out. So
No.
really depressing.
Great. Great.
Okay, so
I
very
did read Crime
depressing.
and
So on that,
Punishment. I did read Crime and Punishment last winter, and guess what's not on my winter reads list? Crime and Punishment or
Any
any
Russians.
Russians. I made a joke, and listen, if you're a Russian listening to this, it's not you, it's me. But I
But
made
it's
a
like a
joke
little
about Russia, the
you.
land where it's always winter and never Christmas, because this is how I feel. This is how I feel. I won't even say Russia. I'll say Russia according to Dostoevsky. Because I actually, and I will say, I haven't finished it, but the first, 300 pages of War and Peace that I read, way better. Like in terms of depressing, way less depressing, even though the subject matter is like
That's what I'm
heavy.
saying. I find Tolstoy
I
less
think
depressing.
Tolstoy, people actually have told me that if I love Dickens, I'll love Tolstoy because Tolstoy was way more British influenced
You
and
should read
influenced
Anna
by
though,
Dickens.
because there's I haven't read War and Peace, but from
But
well,
yeah,
I've read like,
I,
10 pages of War and Peace.
me
But
and
from what I hear, there's a lot of um, interludes on like war and politics. Anna is like mostly just like interpersonal
Yeah.
things. So if
Yeah.
you like the writing, you'd like Anna.
Anna, so I know I'm not selling this. Anna's not depressing because this is like one person's story. Solzhenitsyn is depressing because this is the entire country's story.
here's the pitch for this book. If you've been too happy lately, if you are coming out of Christmas and you are just on a high and you need to have some levity, try the gulag.
This is like St. John and Jane Eyre, and he's like, I hope you can like get this all out of your system in 2 weeks, and let's get back to real life. That's the cancer ward for after Christmas. Get
Yeah.
this out of your system, please. No more celebrating.
Yeah. Hey, beautiful things are difficult, to quote the Greeks. And I know that because of Jason Baxter.
No, I like a lot of really sad books. I'm being hard on the Russians.
No, I know.
Hannah's
There's-
being really hard on the Russians, so I want to blame her more than me.
Yeah. Your life is
I-
not difficult after you read Cancer Ward. So, yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cleaning toilets, great.
Maybe
We
that's
have
it.
one.
If you're feeling bad about your life, go read The
Yeah.
Russian.
You have a bathroom that is your own. You don't have a communal bathroom shared by other people of the middle class. And it,
Oof.
in a house
I
that
don't
is
know. Have you ever shared a
for
bathroom
you.
with 3 newly potty trained boys? That's
Have you ever shared a bathroom with 3 other families of 3 potty trained boys?
no, that's
Yeah,
true.
that would be way
That
more.
That's-
they
that's
win.
fair.
They win.
They would.
The Russians win.
Russians win
What's
always.
like the joke is Americans are like, I will die for freedom. And the French are like, I will die for love. And the Russians are just like, I will die.
Yeah. It's true.
I like the joke.
Anyway,
Jess, do you have any more honorable mentions, or was that
No,
your
I'm
last
good.
one? And on a really high
Non-Russians?
note. Yeah, do you have any non-Russians to recommend?
Oh man.
All right, I'll go on the Russian theme. Loris by Eugene Vodolazkin. I mentioned it slightly, I think, in our year in reading episode because I had read The Aviator. I read Loris a few years ago, so it's not super fresh, but it's very Russian. but also like it feels a lot more Russian than A Gentleman in Moscow, which was written by an
Mm.
American, but like it has very Russian parts, but also like is a little lighter. This is not as depressing as a lot of Russians I've read, but it people compare it to Kristen Lavransdatter a lot
Yeah.
actually because it is set in medieval Russia, but it is written by a modern Russian, which is Kristen similar, where Sacred Inset was from. I mean, she wrote it in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, something. I have to go look at the date. The 1900s sometime.
The
Uh,
1900s.
in the 20th century. But anyway, this is more modern than that. This is like 2015. Um, no, I'm sorry, 2012. The translation was 2015, it looks like.
Well, our assistant just told me that Kristen Lavransdatter was published in 1920. So I'm just going to point out that you
That
saying the
was my first
1920s
thing.
is kind of like your husband saying that you're in your 30s when you turned 30. So there's a
Yeah,
parallel here. That's all I'm
but I
saying.
did say 1920s before I said all the other dates.
You're
So
right. You're right. You
I
nailed
panicked. I panicked.
it.
Every once in a while, I like put something like way older than it should
I know.
be. Like, and then I like had to think, I'm
Or you
like, oh
just realize you have
shoot,
no
when
idea.
were
You're
the
like,
world wars? Okay, are we like between wars, before wars, or
yeah.
after the war? Like even rules of civility, I'm like, wait, okay, we're post World War One, post Depression, pre World War Two, but I think we're getting
Mhm.
close.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm really bad with dates, if you didn't know. But anyway, I this is one of those books. This and Asher Lev are the two books that I've read, and probably I could put Kristen in this too, where I read them and had a deep desire for a very like liturgical and sacramental life and like worship
Hmm.
experience. Like Asher Lev is Jewish, for the record. I realize this is they're Orthodox because they're Russian Orthodox, and in Kristen they're Catholic. So all actually different
Yeah.
religions, but or different at least sects of religions. And but all of them just have such strong ties to their experience of worship and prayer and like
Mm.
believe in especially Kristen and Loris because they're medieval or set in the medieval time. They just like it almost borders on superstitious, but doesn't quite get there most of the time. But they just really believe that God is really working in the natural world and that things like that everything matters, even, the actual things. And we miss that a lot in modern life. So there definitely was a part in Loris. It's kind of long. I mean for a Russian it's not that long. It's like less than 400 pages. But there was definitely a time where I got like a little bogged down and it wasn't as much of a page turner, but then there are other points where it's like total page turner. But the whole experience left me wanting to, yeah, like worship in a deeper way, go to like a beautiful mass, be at a beautiful church, which isn't, I guess, always practical, so maybe it's not good. But even
Yeah.
just in my own life, like think about those things in a more sacramental way. So anyway, recommend Loris. It's been a while since I've read it, making myself want to reread it. I'm really trying to read more new books this year, so I'm struggling.
Mm.
And then I'll just go super quick since I already mentioned Kristen. Kristen was on my list too, but we've talked about it a lot because we're going to read it next year and we've already read it. So I won't say that much. Set in medieval Norway. It's really, really cold in Scandinavia. So it feels like there's snow a lot in the book and it's so long. If you can see I'm holding it up, it's like 1100 pages. It is three books technically, but the cheapest way to get it is in this big Penguin Deluxe Classics, which
Mm.
actually the binding stays together fairly well. So I
Hmm.
do
Yeah,
recommend.
that's true.
But yeah, just feels wintry. I feel like you could only read this in the winter. I haven't read them yet, so I didn't put it on my list, but I'm going to try to read. My stack's about to fall over. I'm going to try to read the Olav Odinson books,
Mm.
which are another Sacred Inset series of four books that Tina Nunnally also translated. And
Mm.
she's like, that's the best. That's the only translation you should read of Kristen. So I'm
Mhm.
assuming it's really good for that one too. And then I'll go super quick because this is what Jess is reading for book swap.
Yay.
I don't know if she started it yet, but The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Yeah, it feels very wintry to me for like some of the mystery elements and because there's a scene where there's a lot of snow. That's probably the main reason, to be honest. But
Mm.
I'm also thinking of trying to reread it right around when Jess reads it so I can be fresh when we talk about the book swap. So it's on my list too.
Yay.
That's all I got.
Well, you reminded me, talking about Kristen, of another nonfiction book that is fun. Well, a couple. One is there's so many. So I'm not even going to throw out a specific one, but just like any of those books about like the Hygge books,
Oh, yes. Oh,
yeah,
Cozy.
like cozy, like anything, like there's so many, but just like
The
those
Little
books
Book
about
of Hygge, I think, is the one that I
yeah,
have.
that's the first one, I think, that got really famous that I read a long time ago, and it was really good. So that's a good one. A second book that I will recommend with a caveat is called There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather. And
There
it's
is.
like
There is,
it's
though.
it's a memoir type, and I don't remember that much about it. I read it a long time ago. But it's by like a Scandinavian woman, and she's just talking about like the habits and things of people who live in the Scandinavian countries and how they go outside all the time,
Always
even when
cold.
it's super cold. The caveat is don't tell your husband you're reading that book, because then when you tell him it's too cold to go out on a walk, he's going to tell you, wait, I thought there's no such thing as bad weather.
That's a good caveat.
So I just think that might happen to some people. I just want to warn you. I don't know.
It happened to Hannah's friend one time.
Yeah, one of my friends. I can imagine that happening.
Her husband always said that to her.
Yeah.
That's great. No, I do I haven't read There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather, but I know the sentiment, but the Hygge books and the Cozy book, and if you're like feeling a little bit sad or like cooped up or something, just like hearing some of the really good things about it being cold and like some ways you can make it more homey and joyful for everyone in your house,
Yeah.
especially if you're a mom who like doesn't want to do fun things all the time.
Mhm.
I recommend the Cozy book. I haven't finished it, but I started reading it when it like first started to get cold this fall. And
Yeah.
that was fun. It's good. It's still on my shelf somewhere. I mean, yeah.
Spoiler alert, lots of good lighting and blankets and tea.
Candles. Lots of candles.
Candles.
Yeah.
There's more, but
Yeah. There's more. Sweaters. Who wants like a really
Sweaters.
good Irish sweater after
Great
reading
winter
that book?
books
Or
if you guys
Scottish
can
sweater.
think of any of those.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we should wrap up because we are going past our time. But if you're listening to this when it comes out, we have just started Out of the Silent Planet and Perlandra as part of our Space Trilogy February and March reading. So if you missed it last week, we had a introduction to the Space Trilogy podcast come out, and the schedules just come out, and those reading guides are going to start coming out soon. So definitely read along with us. And after that, we have the Moonstone, but read the Space Trilogy first.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you would like to read alongside us, our books for this year are Walking on Water by Madeline L'Engle, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, J. Bear Crow by Wendell Berry, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Othello by William Shakespeare, Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength, all by C.S. Lewis, The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather, Trust by Hernan Diaz, Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayeri, and Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen.
That's all we have for now. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to the Reading Revisited Substack to stay up to date with the latest book chat, see what we're reading next, or even make a small contribution if you want to support what we're doing. Until then, keep revisiting the good books that can enrich your life and nourish your soul.